Hello, this is Opal Singleton, and welcome to the Protect and Prevent podcast, P3 Kids. This podcast is brought to you by Million Kids. Million Kids is a nonprofit organization out of Southern California. We cover the entire United States. We're different than many nonprofits that are out there in that we're a smaller organization that is dedicated to researching and prevention and intervention of child sex crimes. And we do a huge amount of work with trying to keep kids safe online. We're a group of 8, what we call seasoned professionals. I think we have some of the best minds in the business. And we have, for the past several months, actually going into years, have been researching the crime of sextortion. And I want to share with you several of our insights that we have gained on this because I want to open your eyes to the challenge of the future. So this particular podcast, we're going to call it the technological transformation that changed the crime of sextortion. So let me give you some background, okay? So 15 years ago, in my retirement, I started out trying to understand online sex crimes. I did this in the context that we were combating human trafficking, specifically sex trafficking. And every now and then we would see a case. In fact, here in Riverside, California, we have one of the largest cases that started out as a sextortion case and ended up being kind of growing to a sex trafficking case. So I began to look at the idea that if you could get someone to either make an illicit video or send a nude photo or have an interaction online through live streaming that was illicit and sexual, then you could blackmail them. And sometimes they were blackmailed into forced prostitution, which became sex trafficking. And that's kind of where the journey began for me. But then we began to understand, long about 2015, we began to understand the impact of child pornography. We now call that CSAM, child sexual abuse materials, but understanding that there was a connection between pedophiles who were seeking images for child pornography, and mainly so that they could buy, sell, and trade those images amongst other pedophiles, either through peer-to-peer networks or maybe in the dark net. And it was amazing. In 2015, the FBI undertook a case they called the Playpen case, and they got involved with, I think his name was Stephen Chase, if I'm right. I could be wrong on that, but I think that was his name. Anyway, they took over a dark net, a child pornography ring, and they used what they called network investigative tools, NIT for short. And that's kind of like putting a dye in your veins to see where it ends up. And I think everyone at that point in 2015 was just blown away by how big some of these darknet rings were. In that particular case, they identified more than 215,000 pedophiles in a single darknet underground pedophile ring. And so that kind of opened our eyes to how big this underworld business was of being able to trick kids or violate kids and take photos of them and get kids to send in their nude photos. Now, this also happened about the time that somebody like Pornhub was out. Now, this moved up to about 2017, 2018, 19, when Pornhub, I guess it kind of came around 2021 in the end, Pornhub would solicit amateur pornography videos. And as it turned out, a large number of our kids decided they wanted to qualify and try to make some money. They naively thought they were only going to be shown in some island off of Australia somewhere. Hey, you got to be kidding me. You know how naive kids can be, that if you're sending in a amateur porn video thinking you're going to make money, it isn't going to end up in one small island off of Australia. It's going to go around the world. And yes, it will be tapped into by these child pornography rings. So as this grew, what we began to understand was that the underground world of CSAM, child sexual abuse material, was much larger than anybody ever thought it would be. Long about, and I'm kind of guessing this number, I don't have it right at my hand, but somewhere around 2022, I think, they actually discovered a CSAM ring, a child pornography ring, in the dark net that was being operated out of South Korea, but it was literally going all over the world, and it had over 1 million paid subscribers. Now, a lot of those photos were coming from pedophiles that would trick kids online into sending those photos. And so it was a huge business, because at that point they realized that the welcome to video child pornography ring actually had over 1 million paid subscribers. That means that if your daughter or your son connects with someone who's trying to get pictures of teenagers or young people in the nude, and that child sent that photo, that it's going to, or video or live stream, that it's going to go out to 1 million people in a heartbeat. And they're very bad people. These are pedophiles. So the world of pedophilia in the underground environment was exposed as the FBI and Homeland Security perfected their ability to go out there and find these images that are out there. But it also meant that kids' whole lives were being changed, because they would be tricked into sending a nude thinking it was someone who actually loved and cared about them. So the way we handled sextortion cases has changed and needs to change a whole lot more, because what would happen in the early days, 2015 to maybe 2020, you had this situation where literally what was happening is the kid would send a nude, and if you could get them to tell someone and ask for assistance, then they would go to a school resource officer or even a law enforcement in those days, or parents, and say, I've sent a nude and now they're blackmailing you. And the response was, what the hell were you thinking? Why did you do that? And we were blaming the victim at that point. And that all had to change. Me and kids and our team of seasoned professionals, as we call ourselves, set about to do a massive amount of training on the subject of sextortion and how it impacts a person emotionally. It literally can take a child to bring a child to a point where they take their own life, or they drop out of school and they start cutting, and they feel like their lives are ruined forever. And it developed the concept of cyberbullying, because as the photos began to be distributed out there and other people saw them, then that kid couldn't go to school. They would be bullied. And it is Melania Trump that is championing that kind of crime at this point. And I believe where we're headed in this is really, I'm proud of her for championing that. So it began to grow, but sextortion was at that point related to either kids tricking other kids, or pedophiles that were trying to get the photos and images and live stream that they could buy, sell, and trade amongst themselves. Well, then we all know that in 2020, we had the COVID pandemic, and that changed everything, because of the fact that now you have kids all over the world home, a lot of them without supervision, a lot of them online. And at the same time, you had a lot of people that were working from home. And if they were pedophiles, they had access to the internet, and they had a lot of pressure on them financially, and they had time in their hands. And we saw an explosion in the number of sextortion cases that were happening. Well, this is where I really want to take this on, because I want you to think about what has happened since 2021 to the year 2025. Along with all the other things that are happening, everybody at home, and like that, we experienced all over the globe a technological transformation unlike we have ever seen in history. And it is a great opportunity, but it is just darn scary when you start to think about where we're at today in online safety and where we need to be very, very quickly. And that is the purpose of my bringing you this podcast. I want to walk through and just open your eyes. I guarantee you we will have more podcasts like this, but I want to just give you an overall introduction today about the various technologies that have happened since 2022 to 2025 and what that means to the crime of sextortion. So first of all, let me tell you that I believe this is the greatest time in all of history. It is also the scariest time because in 2022-23, this is a great call to leadership if you're willing to step up. In 2022 and 23, for the first time in all of history, the entire world was connected by internet. You would hear these nightly broadcasts about 5G high-speed internet, and it began to connect the entire world. Now, it still has a way to go, but what happened is it put third world countries online in the millions. In fact, we believe there are 5 billion people now connected. And I want you to think about the impact of this. And I also want you to recognize that we're just getting started. So countries like Nigeria and Ivory Coast and Pakistan and Philippines and, all these countries that are way behind the times economically came online. That meant for the first time in history, people from the Nigerian cartel, the Pakistani cartels, the Ivory Coast cartels, the organized criminal agencies can come right into your child's bedroom and reach your child. If that does not put the fear of God in you, I have nothing more for you, okay? Because when you start to understand the single impact of that one technology change, and think about this, they're coming online every day. That means from here on out, I'm talking about third world countries, people with organized criminal agencies out in Dominican Republic, out in Cuba, out in all kinds of places can now reach your child's bedroom. And I am amazed that nobody is talking about the impact of that one single thing, okay? And what have we done to prepare our children to understand that, and our families to understand that we now live in a world without borders, in a home without walls? I wrote a book on that subject about 2022 called Societal Shift, A World Without Borders, A Home Without Walls. And we are just getting started. Why our entire government agencies have not stopped and recognized where this is going is downright scary. We've got to stop and understand the impact of that one single event because we place our kids online every day. I often say, we talk about if a child is violated online, who is responsible? And everybody yells at the tech companies. Well, yeah, they are responsible. Okay. But they're not the only ones when you think about what that means, because tech companies need to do a lot more. One thought I had this morning was that we need to be able to get tech companies to recognize and alert you that if you're receiving a direct message or an email from a foreign country, that it needs to have a red flag on there, FC, foreign country, or some other wonderful words that FC might stand for, but we're putting our kids in trouble, okay? And we're not explaining to them the world that they're living in. That's a little bit like putting your child on a Los Angeles freeway without mentioning cars go up and down. We leave it to you be careful on that thing now. And we have cyber safety in school, but very few people seem to understand that we have now opened the door to our kids' bedrooms to people all over the world. And we need to understand the impact. But it doesn't end there. This morning, this day, I just really want to share with you to get you to think. And we're going to have some more in-depth podcasts on this. At the same time, the entire world connected by internet, then we have mass audience live streaming. And what do I mean by that? Everything changed, old codgers out there that are still on Facebook, they have like 45 of their best friends on there, and they can friend and unfriend and like that. And the parents and the grandparents are still thinking in those terms. But when you put a child on mass audience live streaming apps like Fortnite, like Instagram, like TikTok, they literally go out to millions, if not billions of people. All a pedophile has to do is identify the high-risk categories, like hashtag hot cam girls, and sign up and wait. And then they start soliciting on there. On top of it, while they're reaching mass audience live streaming people, those same people, for instance, on Instagram, can come in and get a list of all of your followers. So you are living on the World Wide Web. I can't say it, World Wide Web. It's too many W's. But anyway, you're living there. You're opening the door to the whole world. And now we put our kids out where they have thousands and billions of potential people that they can meet online. And all of those main apps out there, all of those gaming apps, all of those big video type apps like TikTok and Like and Byte, all of those have literate Roblox, that goes out to thousands of people. At the same time we did, most of your apps now have global money transfer capability, whether it's Zelle or Bitcoin or anything else. And what's scary about that is our kids knew all about how to transact in Bitcoin long before we did. We're still, if we're going to be blackmailed, we're still going down to Target to get a gift card, But our kids, it's absolute natural for them to buy coins or trade in online currency. And it is a natural. Why is that a big factor? Because we put our kids online to the entire world now, third world countries that have learned that they can make a massive amount of money by luring kids into getting a nude image and then very quickly blackmailing them for money. Financial sextortion came about in the last couple of years, especially from Nigeria and Ivory Coast and Philippines. And these criminal groups, what they do, let's take Nigeria as an example. They will bring in their poor kids and say, you want to make money playing video games. And who doesn't want to do that, especially in Nigeria, okay? And so their kids become chatters to our kids. That's what they're called, chatters. And their job is to get our kids, especially our young boys, and they catch them at a very unsuspect moment, if you will, and suspecting, I think is the right word there. And maybe they've broken up with their girlfriend. Maybe it's 3 a.m. Maybe they're just playing hot and heavy on a video game that has a lot of sex in it, and they forget that live streaming works both ways. However it works, they get that kid to send a nude, and the blackmail begins, unlike we have ever seen before. Literally, it goes from the chatters over to the high roller cartel criminal organizations. One of these young victims got 1,000 texts in a 24-hour period. 1,000 texts. Think about this. Now with this communication, they know everything about you. And this kid got 1,000 texts saying, you're no good, you're ruined, you're dead meat, you're damaged goods, everybody. And they will show you the list of your Instagram followers and say, I need $3,500. Well, guess what? Our kids know how to send that money, and they will either get busy and try to do it. Very few of them have asked for help. And unfortunately, in several of those cases, nearing the 50 case level, these young people who are bright and accomplished young people, but are dying of shame and embarrassment. They don't know who to tell, and they end up taking their own lives. That is called financial sextortion, and it is happening because of these technology components that I've just mentioned. One, they're on there with millions of people they don't know. Two, it is connected to third world countries that have learned that this is how they can get millions of dollars from American kids, by the way, Australian kids, UK kids, and that they can do this very quickly, very efficiently, and fairly anonymously. And so we need to stop and understand the world that these kids are living in. The kids that are taking their own lives are just brilliant kids. I've read every one of those cases, and it just breaks your heart. And their parents are just devastated. And can you imagine losing your son to a Nigerian telemarketing scam? Seriously. And daughters too, for what it's worth. So we have a global connection. We have mass audience live streaming, connecting our kids to millions of people, and we have global money capability. We also have geolocation software that has come on in the last couple of years. And this is terribly, terribly important because they can tell where your child is and where your child is transmitting from. If you look at and I hope you don't, but I'll just give you from my own experience, okay? Because we research this stuff. That's the value of Million Kids. We look at it so you don't have to. But if you look at Grindr and you get a young man or a young girl that says, maybe I want an alternative lifestyle. I'm going through puberty. I'm feeling my Wheaties, and maybe I want to try out some new and different things with the norm. And you don't want to tell your folks. You go on to an app like Grindr, Grindr. There's no E in Grindr. It is the largest gay LGBTQ site out there. But what happens is they go on Grindr and someone will come on and go, oh, we're only 3 miles away. Hey, you don't have to tell your folks. I'll meet up with you and I'll mentor you. And that geolocation software combined with the ability to pay people off who are blackmailing you, combined with the fact that you are now providing access to your children of billions of people they've never met, and then third world countries who want and need our money. So those are all very important kinds of changes going on. But I want to keep going here because I want you to think about it. Now, we're going to go deep into this in other podcasts, but I just want you to think about the impact of this kind of coming together, this merger of these epic types of technologies that we've never had before. I also want you to realize that during COVID, the devices, the proliferation of devices out there, the tech companies got busy, and almost every kid, I see 2, 3, 4-year-old kids on these little devices, and they're addicted to them, by the way, and so am I. Okay, that's just part of it. And that is one of the things that came about at the same time is that at the very same time that we had, bots and algorithms that are very addictive and very destructive in some cases. I mean, even myself, who understands all this, I just tried ChatGPT and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a new buddy. You know? And you're thinking, who are you kidding? Everything you say to them is being sold. And even my 89-year-old cousin, her roomie is Alexa. And I'm like, stop it, lady. Do not be telling those people all your secrets, okay? And she's going, but it's my roomie. And I talk to him and I'm going, yeah. And, I want you to put on there that you have an ingrown toenail, and what are you going to do about it? I guarantee you within less than 12 hours, you'll have 30 cures for ingrown toenails, so you have these algorithms that are addictive, and they're also very very destructive in some cases. But at the same time this happened, those devices came out and they were really, really cheap. And they've got all kinds of programming now for kids and for adults and like Chat GPT, what's that other one? Perplexity, And with the country club, these people are all addicted to Perplexity. And I'm like, do you realize how your life is changing? Stop and realize what has happened and what this is going to mean to the safety and security of our kids and their future. So at the same time that all of this happened, and we're putting these devices in the hands of ever living human being, and some of them have 2 and 3, I think I might have 4, but anyway, think about then you got advanced animation, especially in online gaming. And a lot of it is sexual, by the way, and it is also gathering your information. But this advanced online gaming now, you get something like, I was thinking about Fortnite. Do you realize that 5 years ago, Fortnite had a concert that had 11 million simultaneous players? And that's the world that your young person has come to live in. So you're getting this advanced animation, this anime kind of thing. It changed the world of tattoos. I see all these tattoos out there. I go, what is that? And they go, it's anime, and it's extremely sexual. And we're doing this to kids before they ever go through puberty. What is also that you have to understand the impact of that is we're feeding them that stimulation to their sexuality while they're on a global stage with third world countries who want to make money off of them. How smart is this that we're doing that? So at the same time, now we have AI, and AI can be very good in crime solving, can be very good in writing your homework or me making up some promotional thing. But it also is deep fakes. There is a case. A deep fake is, before I tell you about that, a deep fake is basically learning to use AI to take a nude body or a sexual activity and put somebody else's head on it. And if you're just doing it for sport and you're 12 years old, that seems like a lot of fun. There was a big case over in Beverly Hills where a whole bunch of students got on these nudify sites and they were making these images of other students. Well, of course, that's illegal, and we need to work to change the legislation and make it even more illegal because that is hurting a person. Here's a perfectly innocent young lady maybe coming to a Beverly Hills school, and suddenly her nude photo is all over the place. And she's saying, wait a minute, that's not me. And they're saying, it's got your head on it, and it looks like your body. And this girl begins to be bullied, and her life has changed forever. She's shamed, she's embarrassed, she may drop out of school, she may start cutting, she may consider suicide. Her life has changed forever. Along with that, when I started studying this thing and understanding what was happening, they were using nudify sites. And I'm going, what the heck is a nudify site? A nudify site. There were 60 of them. I researched them. All of us seasoned professionals set about to so we can educate you on what a nudify site is. There were 60 of them, okay? And one of them had 24 million users. Anybody of any age can do it. Well, how do you shut those down? They're in what they call bulletproof hosting sites, meaning they are in sites that are offshore, completely offshore, where you can't control what they're putting on there. So somewhere along the line, we've got to find a way to block those nudify sites. And number two, I'm thinking that we got to have tech companies be able to flag if anybody is accessing a site that is offshore that has no data privacy laws. So at least we know that you're in a dangerous place. So we have deep fakes out there that's changing everybody. We have all the information about ourselves. One kid that I saw in a case, he said, Mom, they had everything. They had a picture of my bedroom. They had a picture of you. They have a picture of where you work. They have a picture of our house. Well, if you're on Zillow and you're on Google Earth and you're on a lot of those sites, that's exactly how it works. Well, I'm coming to the end of this podcast, and I hope it has been helpful. We're going to go deep into these in the future, but I ask you to follow Million Kids, millionkids.org. ask for our newsletter. Keep an eye out for these podcasts. They're going to be out there. Please share this podcast with everyone you know. We're not a big agency, but we are probably one of the best in the business with the latest research. My name is Opal Singleton, OPAL. You can write to me if this is helpful or you want to ask questions, opal@millionkids.org. If you like this podcast and you want to support our work financially, boy, could we use it. I'd sure appreciate it. We are small, we're stealth, and we make your donations count. So millionkids.org. Folks, the number one thing you can do here is educate yourself. And that's what we're here for. This is changing at the speed of light. There are 8 of us. We research this stuff. We get rid of the excess and we narrow it down to that small amount of information that can change your life. So I hope you'll continue to follow us. Again, this is Opal Singleton at millionkids.org. Go to millionkids.org, sign up for our newsletter, put your arms around your family and let them know you love them. Have these conversations. Share this podcast with your children and your grandchildren. I appreciate you. Let your family know how much you love them, because the 4 most powerful words on earth to keep a kid from being violated are, I believe in you. And you can buy our coins, by the way, at millionkids.org. See you next time on Protect and Prevent podcast.